Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Tyranids. In today's video we're going to be talking about the Vanguard Leapers, which are one of the new models from the Tyranids Index for 10th edition. We're going to be talking about them, talking about the datasheet, go over their abilities, their weaponry, as well as giving a Planet 40k rating at the end of the video. So what's the points cost for the Vanguard Leapers? So if you want 3 models it's 75 points, and if you want 6 models it's 150 points. So quite easy to work that out. You either having 3 or you're either having 6, and every model is equipped with the Leaper's Talons. So we'll go over what that is in a second. They are of course infantry, and well, that's really all the keywords of note. So let's move into their statistics. There's obviously nothing to compare because they weren't available in 9th edition, they weren't a thing. So they've got the movement of 10 inches, so they're pretty quick. Toughness 5, so they're pretty tough as well. 4+ armor save, 3 wounds apiece, leadership 8+, and objective control is just 1. That's okay. So yeah, as mentioned, they're pretty fast, 10-inch movement, as well as the toughness on top of it. That's not too bad at all. Now when you're comparing them to another similar unit, such as the Gene Stealers, they've got only 8-inch movement and they're only toughness 4. They've got similar-ish capabilities. I mean, the Gene Stealers are scouts, but we'll get onto the abilities. In fact, we are jumping the gun. So let's in fact move over to the abilities before we talk about the melee weapons, because that's what the main thing about this datasheet is. So with the abilities, we've got the Fight First ability, which means we're always going to be fighting first, which is very nice. So even if an enemy unit charges our unit, then we're going to basically have the same ability, so therefore when it is the defender's turn to choose, we will be the one selecting our unit first. So we're fighting first, which is very nice. Infiltrators is the ability to deploy in the no man's land as long as you're more than 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone and any enemy units. So if your enemy unit, or if your opponent has any enemy units that also have infiltrate, you've got to stay 9 inches away from them. So it's a little bit of a race to get to the no man's land first in terms of your deployment if your opponent has infiltrate in their army list. And finally, in terms of the core abilities, they've got stealth. So it simply is a -1 to hit them with ranged attacks, which they kind of need that kind of ability, that kind of defense, because they're not firing back. Again, we'll get onto that. The faction is Synapse. Yep, that's the only one we've got at the moment. It's the Index. Their unique ability is Pouncing Leap, so you can target this unit with a Heroic Intervention Stratagem for 0 command points, and you could even do so if you've already used a stratagem that phase on a different unit, which is pretty good because, well, first of all, it's for free, so any unit that's within 6 inches, you can pop this stratagem, which would normally cost you 2 command points, by the way, so free of charge command point, well, free of charge stratagem. And you still need to roll to charge. A lot of people seem to forget in this edition you do need to roll to charge for the Heroic Intervention, but it will be within 6 inches, so it should be fairly straightforward to get. You never know, you might whiff the roll, but you should be getting in there, and then you're fighting first as well. So enemy units are not likely going to want to get too close to these guys unless they want a bit of a scrap. Now we also forgot to mention that they've got an invulnerable save. It's only a 6+, but it does add to their defense with their toughness 5, 4+ armor save with 3 wounds each, and then a 6+ invulnerable save. It will mean you don't need to synergize with them units such as Zone Throws, for example, which do give a 6+ invulnerable save, so we don't need them in terms of synergy. Now let's get back into the weapons then. So we've only got the melee weapons, which is the Leaper's Talons. Right, so attack 6, that's if you've got a unit of 6, that'll be 36 attacks, which is pretty good. Weapon skill 3+, strength 5, -1 AP, and 1 damage. So the sheer amount of attacks there is definitely going to assist these guys, especially with light infantry. In fact, let me give you some figures. If you've got a full unit of 6 of them, going up against standard Space Marines, 24 hits, causing 16 wounds. Unsaved wounds are 8, so that's going to be a total of 8 damage, which will remove 4 Space Marine intercessors if you like. That's not too bad for intercessors, that's okay for a single round of combat. However, if you're going up against Guardsmen, for example, with your 36 attacks, 24 hits again, wounds caused 16 again, the unsaved wounds this time is about 13.3, which means you're going to remove 13.3 models, or 13 models will come off the battlefield, which is obviously much better than 4. Now, if you run those same figures against Terminators with the new increase in toughness for Terminators, 24 hits, 12 wounds caused, 4 wounds are unsaved because they've got 2+ armor save, total damage 4, so you're only removing 1.3. So basically 1 Terminator gets removed from all those 36 attacks. Not as ideal as it would be against Guardsmen, I'd say. And we're back, battery change again. So what were we saying? We were saying these guys are good against light infantry, not so much against the elite infantry. And you can actually improve these figures by using the swarming instincts from your hyper adaptation, from your hive evasion detachment rule, and you're going to get sustained hits 1 with that. And if you've got 36 shots, on average 6 of those will be 6s, so that'll be an additional 6 hits. So you've got 24 plus 6, that'll be basically 30 attacks that go through, 30 hits if you like, instead of the 24. That's going to do slightly bit more damage overall. So yeah, I would definitely advise using swarming instincts if you were. Obviously, if you need to look at the rest of your list before choosing that. But if you've got a lot of units that are anti-infantry, then that's going to be your selection, isn't it? Swarming instincts. Now I want to talk about the battlefield role next for the Von Ryan's Leapers. I always get that wrong. The Von Ryan's Leapers, right? So the battlefield role, what are we doing with these guys? So of course you're going to be infiltrating them. That's one of the first steps you do with these guys. You need to pick, potentially you want to get behind terrain so that you don't get fired at. And of course you want to be racing to do this, because if your opponent has got those infiltrate units, then they're going to be doing it and blocking you out by 9 inches all the way around. So ideally you want to be doing this first to prevent your opponent from doing the same thing you're trying to do. So yeah, get them behind terrain if you can. Now what this is going to achieve is a few things. First of all, you're going to be screening off certain areas, you're going to be getting onto objectives nice and early, potentially your secondaries that will relate to no man's land objectives, you're already there. Third of all, there's factions at the moment that have got a first turn charge. Weldy is one of them. They can just get straight into your back, or straight into your front line, turn 1, and you're like, what the heck, where's that come from? So by having units that are in the no man's land, could potentially prevent them from actually getting to you, because you can, again, heroically intervene potentially, or they've just got to get through your Von Ryan's Leapers first. So that's the first thing. So it's an infiltrate screen. The next use for them is to be tying up enemy gun lines. If you've got a unit that's purely based on range attacks, like the old school Devastators or anything that's got range capabilities, you're going to be charging into them. And even though you may not necessarily get to remove them because they might be quite an elite infantry unit, you're still tying them up and preventing them from actually firing, because they can't fire while they're in engagement range. They of course have the option to fall back, but not a lot of factions have abilities where you can fall back and still fire, with infantry especially. So you're tying them down, preventing them from doing damage to your army. The next thing I'd use them for is objective harassment. If your opponent's on an objective in the no man's land, just go target them. Again, it doesn't necessarily need to be the light infantry, but ideally it would be. Your objective control is only 1 per model, so the maximum you're going to have is 6 for the unit. So you're likely not going to steal the objective, but you can at least minimize their numbers so that other units that you've got could potentially assist you with chopping down their numbers, and then maybe you're going to steal that objective in the end. And finally, they're just a cheap action unit for me. I know actions are they're not called actions anymore, this is 10th edition, but I still call them actions. There are things such as deploy teleport homers, or there's some mission actions where you've got to, what's the one that I'm looking at the moment? The one where you've got to literally create an objective with a unit that isn't firing or isn't charging. This is the kind of unit that can be doing that, because they're not going to be doing much else, unless they've of course got a charge, then that's different, let them do the charge move. But it is a cheap unit that can be doing this. You don't want to be doing it on a large unit of Termagants or Gene Stealers, they're going to be doing their own thing. You want to do it on the cheapest units possible. So let's get on to some synergy within the index. There's not really much in terms of unit synergy, apart from the standard stuff, your Venom Thropes again, your Hive Tyrant with the stratagem, the being able to use a stratagem for free, but you've kind of already got that with the Heroic Intervention, and that's probably the only one that you really need. I mean, you do also have Rapid Regeneration, but that can be used on anything, and you're not really going to use it on the Von Ryan's Leapers to get a 6+ Fear No Pain save, potentially a 5+ if you're within Synapse. You've also got the Overrun stratagem, which I don't talk about that often. I think it's not necessary, but I'll go through it this time because these guys are quite fast. So when do you use it? You're doing it in the fight phase, just before your Tyranid unit in your army consolidates. Until the end of the phase, each time the models in the unit make a consolidation move, they can move 6 inches instead of 3 inches, providing that you can end your consolidation move in unit coherency and within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. If it is within Synapse, which potentially it could be, and you're not within engagement range of enemy units, instead you can make a consolidation move, instead you can make a normal move rather, up to 6 inches. That'll be in any direction. It's just a normal move there. So if it was, for example, your opponent's turn when you've used this, and then your turn's coming up, so you're moving 6 inches, and then you're going to move your 10 inches before your normal movement phase. So you just gain 16 inches just like that. So that's when you would use this kind of thing. But yeah, other than that, there's not really much synergy to talk about. There's a few comparisons, I suppose, with the Death Leaper and the Lictors, but really, they're kind of doing their own thing. And we'll talk about them slightly in the pros and cons, which we're going to talk about now, in fact. So the pros, Infiltrate. That's the first pro. We've not even got them with the Gene Stealers anymore. It's only the Lictors and the Death Leapers that can do that. It's a good ability. Make use of it. You've got the Fight First ability, which means if you are getting charged, you're going to still be fighting first. So your opponent has to think twice about charging your unit. You've got Stealth, so it's a -1 to hit at range, which is also very nice for the resiliency. And they've got that free Heroic Intervention stratagem, which will mean your opponent needs to stay clear of these guys, otherwise they're going to jump in and fight first. They're great against light infantry, not so much against elite infantry. We've run those figures with the Terminators already, and yet they only remove 1 with a max unit. Not the best, but they are very quick, which could definitely get you onto objectives or into enemy backlines, engage on all fronts, all that kind of stuff. As for the cons, they've got no range attacks at all, of course. They're not good against heavy infantry, which we just kind of mentioned in the pros area. They've not got the lone operative ability like the Lictor does, like the Death Leaper does. So if you prefer to use them, at least they're going to come in and have the lone operative ability, whereas these guys, they can be targeted instantly. And finally, we've got a lot of anti-light infantry models in our index already. Do we need another one? I suppose it's down to preference, isn't it? But I still think they're overall a decent unit. The Infiltrate ability does give us a new direction, a new way of playing. Well, it's not really a new way of playing, but because we're lacking that core rule in our index, it gives us a different dimension. So I kind of like them still. I don't think they're top tier, but they're not average. I think they're sort of somewhere in between. So for today, I'm going to go with the Planet 40k rating of 3.5 stars. So guys, that is the end of the video today. You have to let me know yours in the comments down below. What rating would you give and why? Make sure you are subscribed on your exits. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.